This is the first Targa 41 in the UK, and in this video we're going to test it by going wave hunting. A new Targa model arrives with about the same frequency as a new Pope, so this is a moment to be cherished, and whereas in many boat tests I'm trying to avoid the waves, that is completely the opposite when you're testing a new Targa. And it is indeed a new Targa, but is this just more of the same, or is there something genuinely fresh and different about the 41? Well, we're hoping to find all of that out, so stick with me, I'm going to give it a full test. I'm Jack Haines, welcome to YachtBuyer. Before we do that though, I'm going to launch it. Can you hear that little whistle that the A-frame is making? I've got this sort of funny little whistly tune going on in the background and the wind is pouring across it, but ignore that, we're going to launch the boat. So, it's available with IPS. This one is the stern drive version. There's only one option, that is D6 440s. We have got zip wake to keep us on the straight and narrow. Trim assist is on. I've got it in single lever mode. I'm not going to go that way because there's a yacht there. We're going to turn and then we're going to raise the throttles and see what happens. Ooh. There we go, in come the turbos. And if you're not familiar with Targa, they do this. They don't look like they should, but they do. We are now at 30 knots. I wasn't really counting that, but I'd say that was 6 or 7 seconds, and we're up to 30 knots. And it's into its stride. And we're getting the Targa wings on both sides, and that is how you know things are going well. As you're going through this little rolling swell we've got, you see these wings of spray go up either side, and that is when you know a Targa is in its element. It is, at the moment, a bit too calm. We are going to have to go hunting for those waves, because we have the shelter of Studland here. But let's bury the throttles again and see what we top at. There's still a nice little punch there at 30 knots. That is now 36 knots. I'm going to take over the trim because auto trim can sometimes be a little bit shy with trimming it up. So we'll take over there. And we are now nudging on 38 knots, which is what the UK dealer reckons this boat is good for. So 38 knots flat out, lovely. But the other thing about Targas, if we bring the trim back down a bit, is that, yeah, it's all well and good going in a straight line. If you want to have some fun, you can do that too. And it's the most fun from up here, because you really get the accentuation of the lean. I mean, it feels like it leans really nicely from the lower helm, but up here you're on top of the world. This remarkable feeling of having this battleship moving around beneath you. You can almost feel your ear dipping in the water as you pull these hard turns. I can hear it rushing off the hull. Yeah, it's so good. We're into the wind now. That's probably quite windy on the mic, but it bodes well for finding some waves. Oh my goodness, these things are just in a class of their own. That mix of the sturdy look and the traditional values, but this agility, this ability out on the water, the deceptive nature of how a Targa looks and performs. Oh, some waves, we found some. Granted, it's our own wash. One of the things that they've evolved on the 41 is this driving environment. I know it still looks and is really simple, but it's things like having the MFD on this raised pod, having all the controls really nice and close to you. I've got cup holders over there. There's a new design on the windscreen that's just a bit more slick. This chair slides and bolsters, and this chair is a two-way, so you can have a couple of people navigating with you as well. It's incredibly focused, but it just means that it's even more usable. I especially like the position of the MFD now. It's exactly where you want it to be. So when you do just want to cruise, I mean, we're doing 21 knots now, and it feels ridiculously lethargic because you have this massive cruising band with the Targa here at 20 knots or comfortably cruising at 40 knots on the 41, and anything in between without much of a penalty when it comes to fuel consumption. We'll talk about that when we go downstairs because we've got the real-time fuel flow. And actually, on that note, I think we should go downstairs now because I've got a bit of a plan when it comes to finding some waves. Let's head down there. Right then, let's see what we can find, shall we? There isn't much of a groundswell running, but the tide is turning and the breeze is freshening, so I'm hoping as we head offshore a little bit, it's going to begin to kick up a touch and become a bit more Targa-y. But while we do that, we can talk a little bit about what this boat is like to cruise on, because we are now doing 26 knots, and it's not flat calm by any means. There are waves around, and this is just bread and butter for the Targa 41. We are using 90 litres of fuel per hour across both engines, and this is just where you could sit all day. This is Targa country, and I've got the optional Grammer suspension seat, so anything that is making the hull bounce a bit is completely deadened for me, and the seat takes all the pain out of it. And you just have to learn to let the seat do the hard work, because you can stand very comfortably at this helm if you want to. The seat pushes back. I've got a footrest. Not only can I adjust the wheel, but I can also adjust the entire console. So if you want to stand and drive, you can do. But I just let the seat and the hull do the work if I were you. This is a very easy, comfortable driving position for me. And like upstairs, they've tweaked the helm. It's a bit more modern. You've got this dark grey material here, which again, aesthetically looks a bit cleaner. Not so much teak around, but also means there's very little glare coming off this dash. Two big MFDs, they're optional. In fact, Targa don't spec any nav. That's all customer done. The dealers will organise that for you. But these twin 16-inch Raymarines are great. I've also got the Volvo screen up there. That's a little bit far away because the digits are quite small. So for example, when I try and adjust the trim manually, that comes up on that screen. It's a little bit hard to read, but I do love that I've got my analog Volvo dials as well. The white on black, quite iconic analog Volvo dials. That sort of stuff is, you know, being lost in modern boat building, and I really like having them there. It's such an easy reference, you know, fail safe to have it there, and up there atop the windscreen, it just looks proper. I really like it. What else about this helm? Well, we've got the large doors here. As I said, this boat is brand new, so these mechanisms are quite stiff, but not quite stiff enough to hold this in place. They do rely on friction if you want to adjust where they lie, but if you really power the throttles, these will slide back. So they could do with finding a way just to lock these in a couple of different positions. But when they are open, lovely bit of natural air coming in here now. I'll just close it now so that it's not too noisy on the mic. But yeah, it's a place to sit and just cover ground when you want to cruise somewhere. This is fab. The engines are quiet, you know, they're quite a long way back in the boat. Underneath the deck there, we've got this insulated wheelhouse. I feel like I could talk to my passengers and I wouldn't have to raise my voice, to be honest, when we just want to have a conversation. Now they say, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade, but there's a boat testing phrase similar, which is, when life gives you no waves, make donuts. Let's try and make our own, shall we? I fear Mother Nature is not going to dish up anything all that interesting, but the thing about a Targa is, you can quite quickly turn on the wave machine. And this isn't just wanton hedonism here. This is a good way of me also showing you how agile this thing is. I think you get a sense of it from upstairs, but down here you're much more in touch with the engines, the boat. You engage with it. Go back that way. And let's see what we can find that we've churned up ourselves. I mean, it is frankly ridiculous that a boat of this size that looks like this is capable of this sort of hooliganism. I love it. It's something I really like about this style of boat. Not just Targa, Sargo and Nordstar are similar, but This thing will outturn and outperform things that are supposed to be sports boats. Okay, it's not... Yeah, I mean, we made some waves there. Nothing that's really going to do anything to slow down the progress of the Targa 41. But I certainly am enjoying trying to make some waves, and I hope this is, in a silly sort of way, showing you exactly what this thing is capable of. Here we go, here we go. There we go. Probably not quite as comfortable for my fellow passengers, but I'm the lucky one with the suspension seat, so we can do 35 knots into this chop, and I'm sort of impervious to it, really. Let's go back over our wash one more time. I mean, we did have the services of a chase boat earlier, and we were playing around in its wash as well, and you know, that always creates some tough angles for the hull to deal with. And okay, it was more really driver error, to be honest. There is the odd slam that comes through when you do that, but the thing about the Targa is it slams, but it can take it. You know, it's not a super sharp hull. It is beamy. It's as beamy as the 46. It's just not quite as long. So it's not a knife-like progress through the waves. It just sort of batters them into submission until they go away. Yes, man-made waves aside, I don't think we're going to find too much more out here, but hopefully a good demonstration of what this thing is capable of, not only when it comes to crossing the lumpy stuff, but also if you want to have a bit of fun. And that, you know, the agility, you know, it's fun to show off with, looks great on camera. Journalists like me talk about the agility of these things all the time. Of course, an owner's not going to do this sort of thing, but what an owner is going to want to do is have some control, especially, you know, downwind, when you're in a big following sea, having that agility to be able to pass through waves in the cleanest path and change direction quickly and get yourself out of trouble. This agility is really, really valuable, and it's a lot of fun. But we are now closing in on Studland, so I think we should head in there, and we'll pick up a buoy, and I'll give you the tour of the deck's interior. Well, the benefit of there being no waves out here is that we come to the tour, it's much more sedate, much easier to move around. This boat hasn't got the Seakeeper, though it is an option on the 41. And one of the big differences between this boat and the boat that we toured at Dusseldorf is this has got the black line pack, and that really does make this boat look very, very different from the outside. Everything is black, all of this powder-coated stainless around the outside. They are not cheap options, but they do significantly modernise the look of the boat from the outside. Maybe not as charming or typically Targa as the blue hull and the teak top rails, but it certainly adds a bit of purposefulness from the outside. Let's talk about the actual layout though. So we have a fixed platform on this boat. We've got the stern drives underneath, of course, and that's why you have this hatch here, because I can just pop this up and inspect the drives and the props out at sea, so hopefully you don't need to go into the water to untangle anything if that sort of thing does happen. When it comes to the tender, you can stow it in the engine room in a bag, as we'll look at later on, but if you do want to keep the tender inflated at all times, there are various davit options you can have to help launch off the back of what is a nice large platform. And there is some typical Targa stuff back here as well. The dedicated storage here for the fenders, which all slot away really nicely and keep clear of the decks, and crucially the storage space on board as well. Then you have this split gate. Again, that's typical Targa, but it gives you really great central access into this cockpit area, which on this boat has only got sort of the grip deck here. You've not got teak laid decks, which of course is an option, but it just means it looks a little bit plainer. But you have got the pop of the teak table, and this is the first time that this one has been out of the bag, and the smell that pours off it when it comes out the storage bag is just amazing. That is what you expect from Targa. There's lots of that inside as well, as we'll see in a moment. And one of the things about the 41 is this more leisure-focused cockpit. So you have to pay for them, but you've got extra seating around here. You've got backrests as well. These used to be perches. You know, you just sort of perch and you have benches with storage underneath. But now they've all got backrests. So if you do want to sit down on a glorious day like this and enjoy the conditions, you can. And it's just much more comfortable. But it's still practical as well, because underneath all of these, with nice solid catches, you've got storage. And I like to see they've added gas rams as well, because previously these didn't have anything to hold them up, and that's good. With the cushions off, they will hold themselves up. And there's things like having this cut here down the locker so you can run the shore power out and still have the lid closed. And this sort of storage is repeated all the way around, really good underneath here as well. And this makes part of the steps up to the Flybridge too, which we'll get to in a moment. Now you can have another table the same size as this one over here if you want to have a huge amount of dining space out here, or you can have a smaller table which maintains a walkway, but the single table over on the port side is standard. And the last thing to mention in the cockpit is coverage. So you can either have a fixed bimini that comes out from here to give you even more shade over this area, or you can fully enclose the entire thing with covers, which sort of extends the saloon into this area when the weather isn't as good as it is today. We're going to head up to the foredeck now, but I'm just going to mention the side decks. And the other thing is, if you have the IPS version of this boat, which is 45 grand ex VAT to upgrade to, so not cheap. And actually, even with the stern drive version, you can have a joystick here. So you've got controls up at that helm, obviously, and on the Flybridge. But if you're doing stern to mooring, having a joystick here could be an option that you'd like. Let's head up front. Big change on the Targa 41 over Targas that have gone before. It's all big changes relative to Targa. You know, this is nothing revolutionary, but there's important evolution throughout this boat. And one of them is not only have we got these nice, if you can actually use them. Cool. This boat's very new. Everything's Targa stiff. You've got that. We've always had those in Targas, but now what makes all the difference is you've actually got a boarding gate. And we will show how useful that is later on when we go back into the marina. But that does make getting on and off so much easier, that you can also have this break in the bulwark, of course, if you don't want to board at the back of the boat. And I love the way that these clip down into space. It's like a shotgun mechanism. This is lovely stuff, it really is. Very comfortable side decks to move around on. This boat is actually the same beam as the 46, 45 foot long. I know it says 41 on the side, but LOA is 45 feet and it is nice and beamy. And moving around is incredibly easy. And that's made even easier by the fact that we've got side doors. Yes, that is something we're familiar with on board a Targa, but they are much wider than they have been on previous models. And that of course makes getting in and out very easy, but it means if you do want to ventilate using these, because it does quickly get hot inside that cabin, you've got hatches overhead, but this just means you can easily pop a door and get some natural breeze running through it. And it just opens up this area really nicely. There are handholds absolutely everywhere. Just in this little area here, got this big chunky one here, one here, one here, one here. You can put your hand underneath the edge of the windscreen as well. It's such an easy boat to move around on. You feel very safe and secure. I know it's a calm day, but even if you're rolling around, you can grab something really easily wherever you are on the decks of this boat. And the 41 only comes with the Comfort Fore Cabin layout. We'll explain a bit more about what that is when we're inside the fore cabin, which is below my feet. But that means that you have this raised hump here. You haven't got the forward cockpit with the table and seating that you could get on smaller Targas. This is the layout they're going for on this boat. There is a sun pad cushion that can go on this area, so you've got sunbathing space up here, and we have the flush fit hatches. Again, this evolution. Not enormous news for most manufacturers, but for Targa, this is a big step, and it just, again, adds that slicker look on the outside. You've still got that recognisable forehead over here where you can mount lights and navigation equipment, and obviously you've got the hatches too, and it's a very practical area. Great access to cleats and fair leads. Forward anchor is an option. Obviously the fins tend to have a stern anchor with the forward anchor as an option. That's what we've got here, but access to it is great. You've got this locker down here that gives you access to what is a split chain locker, so you've got separate space for rope, chain and rope for the anchor as well. The anchor winch is down here. It's all very, very easy to get to, very clean, all drained out as well. Of course, it's it's a practical area. But when you've got the sunbathing cushions on here, you could lie and catch the rays very nicely up in this position. Right, talking catching rays, let's head to the Flybridge. It's a nice, easy passageway up to the Flybridge. They have added a little step here because this is a seat as well. This is quite high, so they've put a pop-up step there just to make that transition up to this step a bit easier for people. Storage underneath there as well, of course. And then, again, railings everywhere to make my way up onto the top deck, which is still a very simple affair. But again, there's some additions that just add to the usability. I've noted there's some nice strip lighting under there, not necessarily the sort of thing you might have seen before. A new railing design around here that's just a bit cleaner, and functionality is great because you can turn this helm seat round so we can join this area. There's a two-way backrest forward here, so this goes into driving mode but also goes back into dining mode, so to speak. The teak table, yet another lovely teak table, lives under there, and you can obviously put that up here so people can eat up here, and there's just some space back there, really dedicated to having the life raft. Pretty good position to have that in. We've talked about the helm out at sea, but it is more at this size of Targa. Often this is just somewhere to drive the boat from. On the 41, with this layout, it's a living space as well. It's simple, but it works very nicely. Right, let's head inside. Right then, into the interior, and this is very familiar Targa territory. The aft door is the only option on the 41. That is standard, and that's great because we've talked about those large side doors, but it's nice to be able to connect straight out to the cockpit as well. And then you just see acres and acres of teak and fiddles and really neat storage solutions and all the sort of stuff you'd expect to see from a Targa. We have here what is quite a pricey option. It's about £3.5 before the TV. To have this pop-up television. Personally, I'd probably get an iPad Pro, but if you want your TV mounted there, to be fair, Targa have made that mechanism themselves. It's not off the shelf in any way. It is all designed to fit specifically on this boat, hence why it costs so much. But yeah, it's a lot of money for a pop-up TV. The galley is here on the starboard side, and there's a nice big swathe of counter. This particular boat is on gas, but you could have induction cooking if you have the generator fitted, which this particular boat doesn't. The gas locker is on the port side deck. Very easy to get to, and it's a big locker as well. So as well as holding the gas tank, it's a really good storage spot as well. And there's some extraction overhead, which is nice to see, so it doesn't get too hot and steamy in here. We've seen this before, but it's a lovely touch. Dedicated spot for what is a really nice big chopping board, and that hides away very conveniently when you're not using it. Beneath that is the fridge, which itself is a reasonable size. You can only get under counter. There isn't really the space to have a standing fridge freezer. Nordstar have got one on the 42, but it's very narrow, so I don't imagine actually there's much difference in the amount of cooling space you have on the boat. This boat's got the microwave here. You can have an oven version if you prefer, and down here this is a big storage area, but this is where the dishwasher would be if you had that as an option. And this is the sort of thing I really like to see on the Targas. You've got handmade fiddled storage here for all the crockery, shot glasses, and even your Targa branded matches. How cute is that? I love all that stuff. You just don't see that with pretty much any other boat builder. The other thing I should mention is that this dinette also converts into a double berth as an option. It's a manual leg. It drops down to the level of the seats. There's some infill cushions, and then you've got another double berth here if you do want to sleep two more people up here. You can see you've got curtains around here. So yeah, at night it shouldn't be too bad for the odd night on board. But yeah, it's just a bit of added extra functionality. Double bench here, which has got a footrest, which I always quite like to see. It means that if people are sitting here, they can prop their feet up and hold themselves nice and secure, because they've got really good handholds here as well. And then this is the usual sort of thing that we see from Targa, this really handy storage stuff here, just to chuck bits and bobs in at the helm. There's another one here. And we've got the remote control here for the bow and stern thrusters, some cup holders, but there are bigger cup holders on the helm now these days. These stainless steel ones, they're not enormously deep, and they're not big enough, for example, to hold a phone, but you can hold a mug there, and it's securely held in place right next to the helm. The other thing that's really impressive about the inside of the 41 is the headroom. It's a little bit not restricted, but it's lower when you first come in, because obviously you have the aft end of the Flybridge there. But here it rockets up well clear of me at 6'1", and you've got 3 hatches. Though shorter people may struggle to actually reach these hatches because they are set very high up. But having 3 of them means you can be quite flexible with your ventilation if the weather isn't good enough to have these sliding doors open on either side. Now let's head down here, because this is where we'll find the owner's cabin. Right then, the owner's cabin on the Targa 41. You have a few levels to come down to, but then when you're right on the floor level, headroom again, perfectly good, and storage is very impressive. Not great for hanging stuff, because that is the extent of your hanging storage. It's quite shallow, and there isn't much of a rail up top to actually hang stuff on, but for bits and bobs, odds and ends, folded stuff, it's excellent. I love all this grain matching around the top here, how it all matches beautifully, and underneath these, held by catches, you've got good deep lockers. These are all deep bins as well. Could again do with something to hold them up maybe, but they're beautifully put together and really heavily fiddled. So if you do leave stuff on there, it's not going to slide off when the boat is moving along. Really good storage in drawers under the bed, and lift up the mattress, and there's a lovely teak fitted storage box as well. So yeah, Storage is generally pretty good, as is headroom, as is natural light. Twin hatches that we saw up on the foredeck, well, that's where we get the benefit of those. They both open as well, so you get some ventilation, as do these two ports on either side, so natural ventilation shouldn't be an issue. The bathroom, this is well proportioned. It's totally private in this cabin, and I'll just step in to give you a sense of the scale. You do go up a level, but the ceiling goes up as well, so again, I can stand up here fully upright, no problem whatsoever. And it's not a wet room. It is wide enough to have a separate shower cubicle with a nice teak bottom. We've got the toilet behind me, obviously, and then again, two big storage drawers underneath the sink here. It's not a particularly luxurious fit out, but it's spacious and it all works very well. Right, this is the owner's cabin. We head back, we can go and have a look at where guests sleep. The big news back here in the aft cabin is they've lost the partition, which is important because that teamed with the hull window. This is the first Targa ever with a hull window. Thanks very much for catching up, lads. The big difference is the feeling of space down here. This partition not being here means that this feels much more open, it feels much brighter. You have natural light from either window. With the door open, there's natural light being drawn in from the aft doors as well, but you still get the extra berth down here. And you know, it's not a bad size. Okay, headroom really isn't great, but you know, it's a decent enough size berth for someone of over 6 feet. And this is a really nice size. And actually, I think I can probably just about sit up in bed here, hold the iPad, read a book. Yeah, it's not perfect, but it's fine. And actually the width of the bed is very good. Storage down here is okay. There's a hang locker tucked up there. There's more lockers and storage over on that side. And you've got this nice useful shelf here with a plug socket, light repeaters, and that sort of thing. Outside is where we find the bathroom for this cabin. And this is also the day head. It's very easy to access this from this stairway here. So in the day, this is where guests will come. It's a bit of a step up into it from the cabin. And this, well, this is a wet room. This is, you know, slightly tighter. You have got a shower tray in the floor, so you can shower in here. There's not massive space, but you've got a toilet, you've got your sink and a bit of storage. It's an important extra facility that keeps up privacy when you have people using this cabin. Right, before we head off back into pool, let's drop down into the engine room. Right then, engine room access. Pretty simple on a Targa, even though we've got the extra seats here. They are all fine to go up when the engine hatches go up, and we have the same both sides. I mean, they are quite heavy because they've got that on top and they've also got storage underneath. So the table and the leg are in there. So they take a bit of effort to lift up, but once the rams get hold of them, yeah, it's really pretty simple. And I mean, you really couldn't want for better access. It is absolutely great. Even if you just want to have a quick look in there, because you can see the raw water from up here. You can immediately spot if there are any leaks, but if you want to get down and inspect them a bit closer, you can easily step down onto the engine and then you're right down in amongst it all. Now this storage box is an optional extra, but I actually think that's really clever because it makes it such a more useful space. If this was just the engine room floor, yeah, you could wedge stuff down there, but it's not going to be as secure. This is a really helpful shape, big enough to even put a tender in a bag if you want to. You can see the spot over there where the generator would be if the boat had a generator fitted, and if you had the Seakeeper option, that would be down here as well. Again, this nice welded box with a rubber mat. You can see they've got extras, spares in there, fluids. It's so well packaged and everything is so neat. You can immediately spot if something is out of place. The way the wires run, the plumbing runs, it's all beautifully clipped down, all symmetrical. It is a really, really great, easy place to inspect. And you know, you're going to be running this as an owner. These are owner-run boats, so that sort of stuff is incredibly important. Of course, if you've got the IPS boat, then the engines are going to be set a little bit further forward, but with the stern drive, you've got the engines right back, which is what leaves this great bit of space right forward here. It doesn't get much better. Before we head back into the pool and see what this thing is like to handle at slow speed, let's talk about pricing.
The base price for a Targa 41 in the UK is £657,000 excluding VAT, and it has a good standard spec, including the Comfort Fore Cabin, the Flybridge, a bow thruster, trim tabs and diesel heating. Our test boat had around £115,000 of options fitted, including the blackline trim, which replaces the stainless steel and teak rails with black powder-coated ones, the zip-weight trim system, a stern thruster, bow thruster upgrade, the TV lift, Raymarine Quantum radar, and 3 16-inch Raymarine Axiom MFDs. The prices tested or £772,000 excluding VAT.
Well, Targa always build these boats with the idea that you can run them single-handed or with a couple of you. So what I'm going to try and do now is taking some marina all on my own. We've got to put the fenders on, put the lines on, take it into the berth and hopefully demonstrate that yes, you can run these boats pretty comfortably when you're on your own. So the first thing to do is get out and do the crewing. I'm going to pop that back, and then this is where how easy it is to move around this boat really comes into play. So I can step onto the side deck and go and collect the fenders. Fenders all stashed here. Now we are being slightly blown onto these moored boats. This boat hasn't got the joystick, which isn't an issue in terms of slow speed control from what I've felt thus far, but it's more that you don't get DPS. And the DPS is so useful in moments like this where I could just push that joystick button and it would be held in place. Now I'm going to have to go back to the helm and just move us away a touch, just to give us a bit more breathing room while we hang these fenders. But it is still very easy to do that. That's the thing, it's so easy to get back to the helm. Just push us back into the channel a bit. Go and grab those other fenders. But yeah, that's where the joystick, expensive option as it is about 30 grand on the stern drive boat. That's where it really comes in handy, just to hold you still when you're doing stuff like this on your own. But we will persevere. I'm going to put one back here actually. Right, lines. Where's the loop? There's the loop. I'm going to go on this one here. This keeps them stern a bit better. Bow lines. How are we looking? Give it another little spin. Yeah, I mean, this truly is where the joysticks are very handy, not having to constantly keep an eye on where you're drifting to. But this is why you go boating with friends. Right, okay, I think we're ready to head in. One thing I want to point out actually before we do that is I didn't mention it out at sea, but they've done something quite clever with these MFDs. When you sit in the seat, these are quite far away, but they've got a little switch down here right by my right thigh, so you can sit right back, control both screens remotely from there without having to lean forward. I like that. Right, let's head to the marina. Ah, Sultans, you tricky, tricky beast. It's in a lovely place, but it's one of my least favourite marinas to negotiate because it's very tight. But it's a good test for this. It's the first time I've driven this boat, so we'll see how easy it is to get to grips with. Yeah, it's funny, the Targa is one of the few boats where you naturally just want to helm it from the lower helm when you're coming into moor. I mean, most Flybridge boats, you'd be up there driving from up top to give yourself the best view, but the view is so good from down here and you're so in contact with the deck spaces and your crew that yeah, naturally you're just like, no, I want to do it from down here. Of course, you can probably in the future have this boat without the Flybridge and a big sunroof, and then the lower helm becomes even more important. The first thing you have to negotiate here is this hairpin turn. But yeah, I'm just knocking the stern drives in and out of gear here. The stern thruster is an option, and often, you know, stern drive boats, the stern thruster doesn't really work, but this very clever Sleipner stern thruster works, so it pushes the thrust beyond the legs and it doesn't get interrupted by the stern drive legs themselves, which is very, very smart. So you have got that, the stern drive, which is a nice little addition in a tight marina like this. We'll get around the Sultan's hairpin. You know, she's so positive in and out of gear. I'm just using both engines here. We'll kind of catch the breeze a bit, so we'll add a bit of bow thruster just to get us round. get through the wind, and then we should be good to go. As I said during the tour, the boarding gate should make this a lot easier. It's slightly frustrating that the boarding gate isn't there. That's where I want it, right next to me, so I can just, one movement, I'm out onto the pontoon. But we've got one, so I shouldn't complain too much. It's improving, but if it was right there, it would just make life even easier when you're doing something like this. And it's nice how easy it is to stand for manoeuvres like this. I've put the seat right back, the footrest is away, the helm pod is right flush to the dash, so now I've got loads of space around me, I can easily turn, I can easily move in and out, and I've got a really good all-round view. Feel very in control from this position. Right, and this is a berth that we're going to back into because it's a bit too narrow to turn round. Actually, although you could do this manoeuvre with the engines, it does make it easier just knocking the stern across with the stern thruster. Those stern, the legs just give you that bit more oomph, bit more momentum to get around the corner. Should be round now. Make sure the wind doesn't catch us. Quite a long reverse manoeuvre, to be honest. You know, the beauty of this aft door design is that I can see right back to the bathing platform. I can just see the end of it, even from this lower helm. I can spot the end of the boat, which is great. And you've got a slightly longer reversing manoeuvre like this one. There's something to be said for the instant and quite measured adjustment that a stern thruster gives you. Wheel up, so you know where the legs are. She's drifting in nicely. Frankly, the wind is doing most of the work now. Right, move alongside, so let's go and grab some lines. Go. It's going to be quite casual because the wind is pinning us on. There we go, and that's that. All of that functionality, the design of the decks, storage, the ease of movement, that is what makes them so easy to handle when you're on your own. There it is then, the Targa 41. It's safe to say that in creating this first new model in 7 years, they have not thrown the baby out with the bathwater. This is the epitome of evolution, not revolution. It's like the Porsche 911, the same DNA carefully refined over time just to make it better and better. And all these little tweaks do that. If you like the Targa DNA, then everything they've changed does make a big improvement, but its core is the same old Targa. But that is absolutely meant as a compliment. Thanks very much for watching that Seashine review of the Targa 41. I hope you enjoyed it. Please give us a like if you did. And if you want to watch my review of a direct rival from Nordstar, the 42 Plus, I'll put that for you up here. If you want more Targa content, I'll put some down there for you. And if you would like to subscribe, you can do that by clicking up here. Thanks again for watching. I'm Jack Haines. This is YachtBuyer.